When you're 16, you don't think about life. You're in it. You do it. We shipped out of Port Arthur on the Liberty tanker Christopher Shoals, Jim Brown and I. This time we shipped out as ordinary seamen, deckhands. We fought the rust on the iron deck, hauled docking lines, manned the winches, and stood watch at night. In the night I gazed up at the stars, and I thought the serious thoughts of boys. I thought how the stars had been made by God, and then I wondered who made God. And then I wondered who made whoever it was who made God, and I threw up my arms and talked to the stars. Up there on the bow of the ship at night, I thought about my mother, too, that sweet little farm girl who'd never tasted liquor, smoked a cigarette, run wild with the men, who had instead devoted her life to her family and church. I thought of her innocence and how she'd surely die if she knew the sins this son of hers had committed. And my father? Well, my father knew some things all right, but he'd never been in a whorehouse in Galveston or gone to the beach with a naked girl in Aruba. My father, so brave and tough, knew nothing about the real world, the world I was in. Yet, try as I did, I couldn't shed the country boy in me, nor quiet the pesky voice that shamed me. And I now recount with recurring sorrow that as a teenage sailor in those old romantic ports, I saw only the bars and the poker houses and the bordellos. That fall, Jim Brown and I returned to Laramie. Nothing had changed. My upstairs room was the same. Town was the same. The wind the same. My folks the same. They treated me with a little more respect, I thought. Maybe it was a little more distance. I'd seen the world, you know, and they'd seen nothing. Jim and I enrolled at the university, pre-law, by God, going to be a big-time lawyer. I was 17. Of course, my mother knew how her son had departed from the way. I knew she knew. I could feel it. She could probably smell the smoke and the booze. She had a nose for sin. Sometimes I could tell she couldn't bear to look at me, and when she did, she looked as if she were going to burst into that sucked-in, almost silent crying of hers. One day I learned the truth about my mother's intentions for me. I'd just come down the stairs from my room, and there my father stood waiting for me. He had that look on his face again. "Time we have a little talk, son." "What now?" I said. "Your mother's been crying all night. Again? What the hell have I done this time?" "Your mother was driving home from the church the other day and saw you walking down the street with a cigarette in your mouth. You know how she feels about that." "Oh, for Christ's sakes," I said. "And that, too, you're swearing. These days you don't show much respect for your parents or for what you've been taught." I followed him into the kitchen. He started flipping his flapjacks. He usually cooked breakfast on Sunday. He put a pile of 3 flapjacks on a plate and handed it to me. He said, "When little Peggy died of meningitis, your mother made a bargain with God. A lot of little kids were dying of it, and you'd been exposed. Well, if God would spare you, she'd agree to give you to God. And now your mother thinks she's been a failure as a mother, and she thinks she's broken her bargain with God. Wouldn't hurt you to at least go to church with her today, make her happy." So I went to church with her, the old brick church that looked like every other Methodist church in the world. The black and white marquee out front advertising the title of the sermon nobody wanted to hear. A squat, square bell tower with no bell, that was it. She didn't say anything to me about the smoking, and I said nothing to her about her having given me to God without my permission. I was a better poker player than most of the hands at sea. I watched the people more than the cards. I'd won a lot of money playing poker, maybe $500 or $600, and I'd banked these winnings in my college fund. I believed that I was pretty smart with the cards. There were card rooms down below the body houses on Front Street in Laramie, so why wouldn't a smart poker player like me go down there and play a little poker with the boys, make something of myself at an early age? The old pros, their faces wrinkled and yellow, gathered at Hicks' card room like a pack of aging, hungry jackals waiting for prey. They never dreamed that Sister Luck would deliver them some smart-ass country boy fresh from his virgin tour of the sea. The old pros were dried-up, emotionless drones who played their cards close to their chest. They memorized the cards and played the odds. They were living, breathing poker machines who never smiled, never laughed, never joked, and they had a nose for a sucker. After a couple of months, I'd lost my entire college funds, $50, $100 a night. But I learned more at Hicks' card room than in any book concerning the underlying rules of jurisprudence, namely, that those who run the card games always win. The house never loses. The power structure stays in power, and we are the players. In the fall of 1946, at 17, I was dead broke. I began to look at my life anew. Who was I? What kind of a fool? I had lost every dollar I'd saved, but I'd lost more than the money. I'd done what I'd done because I was bad, and the bad had caught up with me. How could I face my mother? How could I tell my father? And how could I ever face old Grandpa Spence, who used to brag that the Spences never had been famous, but there wasn't a drunk or a felon among 'em? How could that sweet old man bear learning that his grandson had become nothing but a common two-bit gambler? I thought about killing myself, but I was too much of a coward to kill myself. Moreover, my mother had told me about suicide. God will forgive anything you do if you ask Him, she had argued, even murder. But if you kill yourself, how can you ask God's forgiveness? Suicide is the one and only unforgivable sin a person can commit. She had said it so many times, and I understood. No, I would never kill myself. The first fall rain descended on Laramie in a fine drizzle, turning the night pavement into reflecting black mirrors. The red neon lights of the bus depot stretched in long, wavy patterns across the wet street, and the engines in the switchyards whistled and whined in the rain. I walked alongside my mother in the rain, my small brother and sister in tow, and then we all boarded the Greyhound bus. My mother looked on as the drivers stowed their bags in the bus's hatch, and after the family had taken their seats, I kissed Barbara and Tom goodbye. I also kissed my mother, just a peck, and then I walked off the bus. Before they boarded, my mother had said, "You know we're not leaving you, Jerry. You're a man now. You can take care of yourself." "Right," I said. But I was not a man. I knew that, and she knew that. I pulled my chin back and turned my mouth down a little, tilted my head from side to side, and all the while inside I wrestled back the sobs. How could she say she wasn't leaving me when she was walking out to that bus to leave? "We'll be back in 3 short years," my mother said. "You write often," I said, as she had said to me. "Doesn't cost much to write." I hadn't written often when I was at sea. My father had taken a job in 1946 as a chemist with the Patino tin mines in Bolivia, and my mother had seemed excited about the adventure. Said she had always wanted to go to strange places and see new things. She planned to be a missionary to the native people there. My family would be living in a high native village near the mine, a place called Catavi. My father had signed a 3-year contract with the Bolivian company. I had never seen him so happy. He'd always wanted to see the rest of the world, this Colorado country boy. My father had gone to Bolivia ahead of the family to get things set up and safe for them. My mother stayed back, sold the house, and I had to move out. Jim Brown and I took a basement room in a prim white frame house, $25 a month between us. I marched off the bus and walked off into the cold night rain. Didn't wait to see the bus pull out. I felt alone. I walked the deserted streets, the street lights glaring, the sound of the rain running in the gutters. I began to sob out loud. As I walked by Hicks's card room, the same dried-up old bastards were staring at the table through the smoke. And then I knew that Laramie, Wyoming, was truly a place of the dead. While the old pros were feasting on the last of my savings down at Hick's card room, the fraternities and sororities were conducting Rush Week, when they invited certain interesting freshman candidates to their houses. There the rushies were carefully inspected for their style and dress, for their personalities and pedigrees. I was not invited, and in my heart I knew why. I was a nobody. It hurt to be nobody, but I never admitted it to anyone. I didn't know it then, but whereas I was unlucky in poker, I had drawn a straight flush in the draw of life. I didn't yet understand that the world I ached for was mostly superficial, mostly empty. My not having been chosen was one of the great gifts of my life. I dare not consider what might have been my lot had I acquired the precious fraternity pin. What if playing golf with the president of the local bank had defined the meaning of my life? What if my life was won or lost depending upon the clubs I belonged to or the cocktail parties I attended? What if I ended up representing banks who robbed the poor rather than representing the poor, some of whom robbed the banks? What if after a lifetime I had no extra chamber in my heart for the widow mopping the toilets and the laboring man coughing in the mines? Years later I was to make arguments to the jury that bore the fruit of these early snubs. Petty events often reveal large truths. Many times I have reminded a jury how, having experienced small rejections ourselves, we learn something of the origins of crime. Criminals are not born, I have argued. See him in the crib, this man who stands charged before you. See his face, no larger than my fist, wrinkled against the light. He looks no different from the newborn in the crib next to him. But at the moment of his birth, this child was branded as a nothing, as a worse than nothing. So my mother wanted me to preach? Well, often I preached to the jury. Over and over I have argued that our fate is mostly a matter of vision. Most of us try to fulfill our visions. In the ghetto, the unjustly branded child sees little more than a life of crime. Give me the child born in the ghetto, I have cried. Let us lift him out of these venal concrete boxes and take him into the wide-open spaces of Wyoming. Let him see the majesty, the beauty of our mountains. Give him another vision. Give him parents like you, who are educated and loving and responsible. Give him an education where his vision can be further expanded. Give him another vision, and the child will discover another way. This man was punished when he was born. Punished and adjudged and labeled and rejected. Shall we punish him again? Reject him again? Might we not show him that there's something left in this world called love? That there are people who care, and that those people sit on this jury? At last, cannot love conquer hate? I thought my mother would have liked the preaching. I got a job as night bellman at the Connor Hotel, best hotel in town, 30 cents an hour. And later that year, until the following spring, I worked as a switchman for the Union Pacific Railroad. Night work down in the yards, making up the trains, dangerous work, hanging on the side of a moving car, dirty work. In the morning, after a full shift, a fellow came in dirty as old rags and bone-tired, and in the deep winter the marrow of a fellow's bones was about half frozen. In the cold, clear mornings, fresh off the switching trains, I stomped into my 8 o'clock class wearing my dirty overalls and my heavy work shoes with the steel toes. My face was smeared with soot, and I still carried my switchman's lantern and my lunch pail. I sat them under my desk and looked around. Of course, none of the girls in the class looked at me. None of them but one. Her name was Anna Fidelia Wilson, a tall, bright bluebell of a girl with blonde hair and good stuff in her sweater.